Hello, welcome to Afternoon Sport. What a show we have for you today. It's coming live from Jackson's on George in Sydney CBD on George Street. And what a lineup we have. Mark, Waugh, Adrian, Tucker, two fantastic New South Wales cricketers. Mark obviously played for Australia as well. And a man that many of you may have heard, Mark Gable from the Choir Boys. What a fantastic afternoon. I hope you enjoy this episode of Lunch with Lee, brought to you by Afternoon Sport. Welcome to Lunch with Lee. I'm your host, Shane Lee. Today on the show, we've got Adrian Edward Tucker, a former New South Wales cricketer, playing 17 first-class matches for the Baggy Blues. He took 45 wickets and has the best figures of 5 for 38, which is outstanding. In his first Sheffield Shield final, he dismissed the great Alan Border twice, which is an amazing effort. Outside of cricket, he's been an equities trader. But now he runs the dog franchise with his lovely wife Margaret, who's here. Hello, Margaret. Anyone's got a dog on during Christmas, sent to their place. They get treated like absolute royalty. He's a great mate of mine, an exceptional debater, and his cue's a button. Welcome, Adrian Tucker. Also on the show today, Mark Edward Waugh, a former New South Wales Australian cricketer, playing 128 Test matches and 244 ODIs for his country. He scored 8,000 Test runs, 20 hundreds. He also scored 8,500 one-day runs with 1800s and is arguably the greatest fielder of all time. Post-career, he's a commentator and is involved in training thoroughbreds with his wife, Kim. He's a twin, he's a keen golfer, and was a little bit partial to a mullet back in the younger days. Welcome, boys.
Thanks, Shano. Mullet, geez, I love a mullet nowadays. Jeez, I need to flick it up from the back, yeah. But great to be here. Good to see so many people here. Hopefully we can entertain you for a little bit. Yeah, a couple of spinners and a fast bowler.
So I want to start, you probably don't know this, Junior, but Margaret, who I mentioned before, she used to go, when she was at university, she used to go to the SCG to actually watch you bat. How do you feel about that? There's Adrian's wife now.
What's wrong with that? Good judge. Did you have a bikini on in the members, or? But those are the days, Shano. Even this place, Jackson's on George, we had a few big nights here after a Test win or New South Wales. So yeah, had a good following of women. So go on you, Margaret. And I know I've got 4 dogs as well, so maybe we can sort out a deal there to look after the dogs and groom them. But yeah, you're a good judge.
So I want to ask you, Tuck, I mentioned at the start, let's go back to your first Shield final. That, for people that don't know, I played 12 years for New South Wales. Adrian played before me and after me, but we never played a game together. He has the longest break in first class history between matches, and that's including people who played in the war. But anyway, I want to ask you, what was that like? How old were you when you played your first Sheffield Shield final? You got Alan Border out twice. What were you thinking? How were you feeling?
Thanks, Shane. Great to be back at Jackson's. First Shield final, I think I was 20. And I sort of came a little bit out of nowhere. I remember they dropped Peter Taylor, the off-spinner for the game, and he was sort of the incumbent Australian off-spinner. But they went with Greg Matthews and me. But, you know, I knew I was surrounded by, you know, some players that either were or would become legends of the game. So, you know, I felt as though I was in a pretty good place going into that game. I was in decent form, or they wouldn't have picked me. And we sort of took it from there. And I got 4 wickets for the game, and 2 of them were AB. You know, first innings wasn't particularly exciting. He just chopped one on. It was sort of a little bit short, so I can't really claim that one. But in the second innings, I got him with a wrong, and which, you know, even for the rest of the 15 years of my career, remained the best piece of bowling that I ever produced. So
beautiful.
Yeah, it showed my peak to 20.
I want to ask Tuck, because Tuck, you were bowling leg spin in and around the time the great late Shane Warne was bowling. I want to ask you about him, and do you think he destroyed all future spinners' potential reputations because how good he was? And what are your thoughts now on spinners playing a massive role in particularly not only one-day cricket but T20 cricket?
Thanks, Shane. Talking about Warney, I mean, you've got to think back to even before I and he came on the scene, because we were about exactly the same age. There was a lot of talk about leg spin being a completely lost art then. And he came through and just absolutely changed the game. The thing is, you've got to be really, really good. It's a difficult art. And, a lot of the coaching I see and the actions that I see of leg spinners these days are guys trying to replicate Waugh, and you just can't do it because he was so strong through the shoulders and the hand. He had a technique that was really simple. It should be great to copy, but average people just can't do it. You need momentum through the crease to be able to do it. So, I just don't see that being coached well at the moment.
No, I think I remember we came to Jackson's on George here many years ago with the Australian cricket team, and Waugh would always come in late. He wasn't a big drinker. He used to drink the occasional Madurian lemonade, didn't he? Yeah. Which is the old illusions, what they're called, I think, yeah. But he'd always walk in, he'd stand at the highest point in the bar just to announce himself. Because at the time I was single, and Waugh was always single on tour, wasn't he? It was
So you basically stood next to him?
I stood next to him, yeah.
A few of his off-cuts.
That's it, mate, yeah. Now, Gene, I want to ask you, mate, because you're back in the day we met, you had a mullet. You had a good following of the young ladies who used to like you. I think you met your first girlfriend at Kingsgrove Sports Store, didn't you? Where'd you meet her? Was it in the Batcone section? Where was she?
I met a few before Sue, no. I mean, those days is different to these days, obviously. And the mullet was... If you didn't have a mullet in the 90s and the 80s, right. You just weren't in the game, were you? There's a few fellas here my age. If you didn't have a mullet, you had no hope. So it was just... Yeah, I had a solid mullet, I must admit. Pretty long, but embarrassing to look at some of the photos from times back in the 80s and 90s. But, yeah, it was a different time then. I mean... these days the players have got so much scrutiny on them, and they can't scratch their nose without someone taking a photo of them, and they know that. They get well paid for their cricket these days. But in those days you could obviously get away with a lot more. But to be honest, my age group, my era was Tubby Taylor, Stephen, Gavin Robbo, those sorts of guys. We weren't actually big drinkers, apart from Tubby. But I first started playing with David Boone and Jeff Marsh, and those guys and AB. They were real pissheads. But it was the next era that sort of changed slightly, and we had a good time on tour, no doubt about it. But I think once it came to the cricket, we sort of switched on. But you're here for not a long time, a good time. So I think if you get the balance right, and that's one of the difficulties these days with professional sports, when it's so. Everything's so scrutinised and it's so strict, and you don't really see the characters that we had, through our era. And Waugh was one of them. He was a great character. Obviously, he's, he took a lot of the attention away from other players if you're at a nightclub or an airport or something. So he was great to play with. Obviously, a super player. So those were the days. We can all remember them.
I want to ask you about that because. The one thing that people don't know about Mark Waugh, you had a really interesting role, I reckon, in that Australian cricket team at the time. You're a guy, you always trained hard, you did the right thing, but you always spoke your mind. So you were like the voice of reason, and there was huge egos in that team at the time. You had the Warnes of the world, the Dean Jones, all these sort of guys who had huge egos. Did you realise you could say things that actually would resonate to them?
Not really. I mean, yeah, we did have some big egos, but I think, we had a lot of guys, a bit like Tubby Taylor and Stephen, who would pull those guys into line. If Waugh was bludgeoning or something or not quite doing the right thing, then you'd have a quiet word to him, and he was man enough to sort of step into line. But I think in those days, my ethos is just be yourself, be honest. You can't get in trouble for telling the truth, can you? Well, you can, but I mean, I suppose you can, yeah. You're right, you can. But generally speaking, you can't get a lawsuit against you, can you, if you tell the truth? But that's the way I played my cricket, but kept it simple. And often the simple way was the best way. Even at team meetings, we'd rave on about where to bowl. And I'd just say, just top off stump and about 3 bounces and over. That's all you need to do. Knock their heads off and we're right. So, it was a simple way of playing, but I was just sort of myself, and whatever happened.
Now, I want to ask you, Tuck, I mentioned at the start, you played in a Sheffield Shield final. You get the Great Allen Border out twice. You then, maybe a year or two later, have 2 years off cricket. You totally quit cricket. I think you move overseas. You finally come back. You make your comeback match 12 or 13 years later, 2003, 2004. By the way, based on those stats, you're due for a comeback in the next 2026. So we'll look forward to that one. But talk me through that game. Steve Waugh, Mark's brother, was captain, New South Wales. You hurt your hand. What happened?
Well, I dived for a ball in the outfield and split my webbing in my finger. And it was sort of bleeding. You don't like bleeding on the ball. That's no fun for anyone. So at the tea break, I went down with the doctor to get a couple of stitches put in it. And it was in a really bad place for a leg spin bowler. But I originally wanted to get the glue, but the doctor didn't have the glue. He said, oh, that's all right, we'll put a couple of stitches in it. So he needled me with some anaesthetic. And I basically couldn't feel my whole arm. So at the tea break, I said to Steve Rickson, the coach, mate, I can't feel my arm. I reckon I should sit out for a couple of overs. I can sort of starting to come back. I was too scared to talk to Stephen about it. So I just sat out. But while I was off, Dominic Thornley, who was 12th man, took two absolute screamers. He caught Stuart Law diving behind himself at backward square, a ball that I wouldn't have got a hand on. And he took another one running back over his shoulder. I probably would have got a hand on that, but I was a 30% chance of catching it. So at that point, Stephen wanted me to bowl. So Dominic Thornley comes running off, and I run back on into the huddle. And Steve says to me, "Oh, what's going on?" I said, I just got a couple of stitches. It's fine. Wouldn't worry about it. It should be all right. He said, can you feel? He said, yeah, I can feel. Yeah, no problem with that. He said, well, if you can feel, you can bowl it. You're fucking on. None for three off that over.
So you must have felt a bit of pressure there, but mate, I'm looking forward to your comeback, Tuck. I want to ask you, Junior, now, mate. That 99 World Cup, we win that. I didn't play in the final. I think I was 13th man. Brendan Julian was 12th man. The Lua, we used to call him, a very attractive man. And Damien Martin. Damien Martin and myself, we were all single at the time. We were going to not come back with the team. We were going to go to south of France and Venezuela. That's where we worked out all the best looking women were at that time. But Cricket Australia made us come back for the ticket take parade. There was no business class seats left, so the three of us who didn't play were in first class. We're sending you guys back champagne. You weren't very happy.
Mate, I did not know that. That is wrong. And you haven't changed. You and BJ are still flying first class. But yeah, mate, you had a good tournament, I think.
Yeah.
You didn't make many mistakes. How many games did you play?
Just two on that one.
I think BJ played one against Bangladesh, against the big boys, so you just... You had more roots than drinks and runs and wickets, to be safe to say. You and BJ and Marto. Three good-looking boys, though, on the bench, three good-looking boys. But, we had a strong squad. I mean, for you guys not to get a game, we must have had a strong squad because you could play all right. So, but great tournament, wasn't it? We started off slow as anything. We did beat Scotland, though, in the first game. We beat Scotland, then we got beaten by the Kiwis. Pakistan beat us. A bit similar to the way this tournament's gone for Australia. Lost the first two, and then we just started to, get the odds better, get out to about 20-1 and get the cash on. So Australia have been very similar in this tournament, but it was a great experience, that World Cup, obviously. And we flogged Pakistan in the final. They were useless in the final, but... No, I didn't know you flew first class. No, I'm really dirty now.
Listen, I want to... we've got a great afternoon planned. We've got Mark Gable coming on soon from the Choir Boys. He's going to sing us some songs. Mark, who I thought the song Run to Paradise was a drug song. He says, no, it's an anti-drug song. He couldn't believe he grew up in the Northern Beaches, and he couldn't believe how people were trying to escape paradise by and living there. And then he said he got divorced at 30. He turned to Keith Richards for 20 years. So I'm looking forward to hearing him sing some songs. I'm looking forward to that. But I want to thank my two guests, the two Edwards, middle name Edwards, Mark Edward Waugh and Adrian Edward Tucker. Thank you, boys, for being on Lunch with Lee. Cheers.
Riding down a highway, going to a show, stopping on the byways, playing rock and roll, getting robbed, getting stoned, beat up, broken bone, getting had, getting choked. I tell you folks, it's harder than it looks. It's a long way to the top if you wanna rock and roll. It's a long way to the top if you wanna rock and roll. You think it's easy doing one night stands? please. And come on, everybody. Da-na-na. Da-na-na-na. Louder. Da-na. Da-na-na-na. 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 Let me tell you a story. It's not about cricket, but it was only 500 metres up the road, George Street, turn left, or maybe it was 600 metres, into King Street. That's where this song was recorded. Albert Studios, number 1. Hotel, motel, make you wanna cry. Lady to the hard sell, know the reason why. Getting old, getting gray, getting ripped up, underpaid, getting sold second hand. That's how it goes, playing in a band. It's a long way to the top if you wanna rock and roll. It's a long way to the top if you wanna rock and roll. You wanna be a star with stage and screen? Look out, it's rough and mean. It's a long way to the top if you wanna rock and roll. It's a long way to the top if you wanna rock and roll. You sing one. It's a
Ladies and gentlemen, well, just a quick little bit of quiet. We're just going to just take a serious moment now. Just so everyone knows, Mark Gable is safely on the bus home. He is licking the windows as we speak, but he's safely on the bus. So wasn't he fantastic? Mark Gable, brilliant, wasn't he? Run to paradise. How good. I want to quickly introduce Luke Starr from the major sponsor of this event, Cell AED. As I said at the start, it's an Australian bit of technology. It's the world's smallest defibrillator. So, Luke, you want to tell us a little bit about what the product is and why you're here?
Well, look, I don't know if it's going to be really relevant to this audience because I look around and I see a whole lot of people who are convinced they're going to live forever. But the people around you maybe not so much. So, we created this technology to address sudden cardiac arrest. You've all heard of heart attacks. Some of you may have had some sort of experience in your lives with cardiac arrest. This is something that kills 25,000 to 30,000 Australians every year, and the global survival rate is less than 1%. Now, it's so low because it kills so quickly. If you collapse, you are unresponsive and you're not breathing normally, typically you're in a cardiac arrest, and then for every minute you don't get help, your chances of surviving drop by about 10%. So if an ambulance doesn't get there within 10 minutes, and typically they don't, you're not coming back. So we're an Australian startup. We're an Australian company that invented the world's first personal defibrillator. It's the world's smallest defibrillator. Typically, they are about the size of a suitcase. They cost thousands of dollars. If I took this out of the case, it would be the size of a block of chocolate, and it starts from $359. And we did that because we need to get them where AEDs currently are not. We've got to get them into homes. But also getting them out there. And Shane, you've had this experience yourself where you've encountered someone that this has happened to, right?
Yeah, it wasn't me who had the heart attack, touch wood. But no, it was Christmas a few years ago. I was down in Gerringong and I was going for a walk with a mate of mine, Paulie Barrett, who's not here today. He was supposed to come, but we were going for a walk around the sort of pontoon down in Gerringong, and we heard some screaming from the water. There's two older guys we thought were drunk, actually. It was about 8 in the morning. What we worked out, one of them had a heart attack. It was a big guy. He's probably about 120 kilos. And his mate was trying to hold him up. So Paul and I had to dive in the water. And when you're confronted with this, I've done CPR in the past, but this is real now. We had to drag this guy out of the water, and were calling the ambulance at the time, and it felt like forever. I was administering CPR, and the ambulance took it felt like about an hour and a half, but they were there in about 12 minutes. We still don't know whether the guy survived or not, but if you had one of those on you, it could have been a very, very different story. So he was about 70 years of age, I think, at the time. It was really, really sad. But I remember going to bed for weeks after that and still seeing the guy's face in my dreams. It was horrible. So this is real. Since we started working together, actually, at least one life has been saved with this.
Absolutely, several now. Like we know, we just had an instance a couple of weeks ago where Caravan Park in Victoria, somebody collapsed, a cell aid personal defibrillator was used, and it saved their life. And we're starting to see more of these stories come about. We've got Terry the Torso on the bar there showing how it works. Although, given he's got no head, arms or legs, I think a cardiac arrest is the least of his worries. But it's really simple. You just snap it in half, peel off the back, get it onto the bare chest. And by being able to deploy this in seconds and getting them everywhere, we hope that we can actually save more lives from cardiac arrest. And here today, if one person from every table went to cellaid.io and bought one of these, that's dozens of lives that could potentially be saved. So if you're thinking about a Christmas present, a gift of life is a pretty good one. So yeah, thanks very much.
Yeah. Thank you, Luke. And look, we do appreciate it. Whilst the Afternoon Sports Group, we love to have a good time, good fun, but around CLAD, it's a really, really good cause, and you're saving lives, so it's a good feel thing too. So thanks, Luke. Cheers, mate. Cheers. That's it for Lunch with Lee this week. A big thank you goes out to our guests, Mark Waugh and Adrian Tucker, and Mark Gable on guitar. Make sure you hit follow on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts from, and do us a favour, hit 5 stars, and while you're there, and if you're passionate, please leave a review. It means a lot to us. And come check us out on Instagram at I'm at Lunch with Lee. Our official Lunch with Lee photography was done by Felicity Kelly. You can find her on Instagram at Felicity Kelly Portraits. And once again, thanks to our producer, Dan McHugh. We'll be back soon with some more legendary guests. We'll see you then, guys. Take care.